We're rats. We're the rats.
Rats, a small yet intelligent member of the rodent family, often seen as pests in urban households, yet also frequently kept as pets. In Rimworld, we can see both of these properties reflected, able to be tamed as sort of a defensive cannon fodder while you fill your attackers with lead, as well as a potential hunter capable of bleeding one of your colonists or pets to death if you're not paying attention. Surprisingly, rat-like militarization has already been used in Rimworld once, by Reggie, who attempted to use rat vomit to erect a large enough force of rodents to destroy the Empire. Unfortunately, his forces were decimated and the mongrel dogs of the Imperium lived to fight another day. My theory as to why he failed? He didn't have enough rats. Therefore, I think we should give these rodents another chance. So that's why for today's challenge, I'm going to be creating an ethno-state of rats and putting the resulting Skaven clan up against the void monsters of the Anomaly DLC. How are the rats going to fare? How many rats am I going to need? What type of rats am I going to need? I don't really know because, well, I'm an insect. But when I asked the giant rat, who is the current leader of the rats, well, he's kind of a dick.
I'm the giant rat.
What a fucking douchebag! That being said, I got to work creating the Rat Master race. They are filthy, thin-skinned, low-testosterone wimps who suck at cooking and failed art school. However, they also have an iron stomach, are immune to pollution and other diseases, gestate rats whenever they get sick, and have an affinity for rats as well. In other words, they are all optimally designed for ranged combat and summoning entire hordes of their less evolved brethren. Getting started, we immediately began digging a hole in the side of the mountain. The plan was to make a miniature apartment complex and store the hell monsters deeper inside. Almost immediately, one of our colonists got sick, and I realized I may have made a mistake. 2 out of our 3 colonists had hauling and cleaning disabled, and the filthy gene and shitty cooking, this place was going to get very filthy, very fast. Oh, and since it's the Anomaly start, we got a pet Ghoul. I decided that I'm allowed to keep him since we spawn with him even though he's not a rat, but I am not allowed to make any more. Anyways, the short version for Ghouls is, they can't do anything but melee fight. However, they're very powerful in melee combat and regenerate any damage that doesn't kill them. They do need to eat meat and dead bodies though, and will get violent with other colonists if they don't have anything to eat.
May I please have the water?
But the early days of the rat colony were going well. We were slowly building a respectable enough building, and every now and then a raider would attack, and our pet Ghoul Xbox would crush their pelvis. We tried to rip this one girl's organs out for money, but we kept failing until she bled to death. We didn't want to waste the body either, so we just had Xbox eat her. Just your typical Rimworld experience, really. Eventually, the Void decided it was time for a fight and sent its first Anomaly after us, and Xbox caved its face in immediately. We also managed to organ harvest Taukai, which I don't even know how that's possible considering they're walking tumors. Xbox ate some ass and then killed and cannibalized another Ghoul.
Xbox.
We were progressing nicely too, and even got it started taming the veritable army of rats that were amassing outside of our potato farms. Unfortunately, it was all downhill from here. You see, Xbox tried to eat too many people at once, and it resulted in his untimely demise. Half our rat population got the bubonic plague.
Ironic.
Also, this guy named Pimereth joined the colony and wouldn't fuck off. I considered using him as a tank for future attacks, but I had actually planned an alternative tank to be developed. You see, the Rattler weren't the only race I made. I had also planned a secondary physically strong yet intellectually dull race to be developed as a sort of rat ogre of Rimworld. I modeled them after the Hussars of the Empire, even giving them the same Jojos dependency as them. This would have lasting consequences. And soon after a raid where I threw a dozen of my own rats at the problem, we had 2 rat ogres of our own, and then combined with my rat army, we're doing a great job at getting through the anomalies. However, that Goju's dependency ended up coming back to bite us. See, I bought some Neutroamine from a trader so I could make my own Gojus. However, my rat ogres were also prone to tantrums due to their aggressive genes, and I hadn't realized one of them had smashed the Neutroamine during one. My rat ogres went comatose at around the same time I found out, and we were at the complete mercy of traders. Traders who never ended up coming. And at the same time, I had sent out all of my rat warriors to go attack a flesh nest, which they were all violently slaughtered, meaning all I could do is stay at home and watch the rat ogres slowly melt like a child inside a hot car.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
However, I still stand by the idea that this will work, and so I'm going to try again, but making some changes. First off, I removed the Goju's dependency, seeing as how my metabolic efficiency was telling me I was doing chromosome construction wrong anyways.
Hey pal. You just blowing from Stupid Town?
Secondly, we'll be playing on a partially polluted landscape due to a cunning plan that I have for later. Lastly, despite having poor cooking, one of my colonists will be modified to have high cooking from the start, because I would like to have at least some reprieve from the endless amount of rat vomit. Getting started, we found a crevice in the mountain that was guarded on the other side by bugs, and began digging out another apartment complex. Unfortunately, almost immediately, Randy decided to give me the middle finger and throw a cold snap at me, but we were just inside mining anyway, so it didn't bother us that much. Our rats were starting to develop some toxic buildup, but rats in general have a 90% resistance to cancer-inducing environments, so we weren't too worried. Xbox had to put down a traitorous rat, we managed to capture a site stealer and start researching, and Randy airdropped a secondary ghoul to us, but it was unconscious, so we just kidnapped them. We had begun vomiting out copious amounts of rodents due to our filthy environment, and our opening raids weren't really all that much to fear. We even had some fun trying to pull their organs out, and next up of the anomalies was the first of the Deli Meat Assault Force.
Is that ham processed? If it's processed, I don't want it. Ma'am, that is an 11-pound whole slab of deli ham.
Basically, the Deli Ham's gimmick is they're really easy to fight, but there's a lot of them. No big deal, just take them to the dungeon. We organ murdered someone else, started researching the toxifier generator, and Kodo tried to take revenge on this fox who ate one of our rats. Also, we found a room full of refrigerators, but I didn't feel like messing with it at the time, so we kinda just left them there. The insects were doing a good job at helping with the raids, too, ensuring nobody came at the colony from the caves. Also, this site stealer tried to escape, so Xbox decided to have a word with him. And that word was, of course,
Xbox!
Randy decided to give me a bunch of blood for some reason. We started hydroponics in the caves so we could farm in the event of another cold snap, and that's when a raid came with some of the very rats we needed for our ethno state. After very politely beating up one of them, and the other one getting torn to pieces by insects, we had a future recruit on our hands. We also wanted to automate some of the more menial tasks, so we did a questline to make him a candidate. And by that, I mean I had Xbox do everything, and then Vlad became the candidate. Oh, and I started to realize that there may have been an issue with having this many rats, as they began to eat far too much of the plants, starving themselves in the process. So every now and then, we would just execute several dozen of them. This came with its own benefit, you see, as I started to notice that some of the rats were so hungry that they would eat other recently deceased rats, and it gave me an idea. If it's good enough for them, then it's good enough for us, and we began butchering and consuming the rats we slaughtered for population control. It was a real 100% energy-efficient recycling method, as we would consume the rats, use the remaining rats for defense, and then eventually vomit out more rats to begin the process again.
The hamsters?
They're not hamsters, they're rats. It's ratatouille.
Another raid, but I accidentally organ murdered them all because I felt like it. Someone vomited rats in the freezer, so we kinda just left them there. We got a second tox generator up to both terraform the environment and for electricity. The rat ogre Kim joined our cause, and she got the grand honor of opening up the fridges. And oh my god, this was a clusterfuck. One of the passengers went on a rampage immediately, killing all but one of the other inhabitants. We saved them, assuming they would leave, but they actually ended up trying to join instead. I considered altering their genetic makeup to turn them into a rat, but decided that that was cheating and instead humanely put her down. And then we had Xbox eat her. Oh, and we decided the void wasn't invoking fast enough, so we started poking it.
What's the worst that could happen?
Almost immediately after, the worst event so far happened, a death pall. Random dead bodies started rising all over the place called Shamblers. These Shamblers can be as weak as the Deli Ham or as strong as a Ghoul. Furthermore, they will sometimes explode or spew acid when they die. What's even worse is that during a death pall, they will resurrect literally any non-mechanoid corpse, including skeletons and animals, and there's no upper limit to how many times a corpse can rise again either, meaning if you don't get rid of a corpse, there's a good chance you will fight it 3 to 4 times over the course of the death pall. This became a huge fucking problem when one Shambler would go and kill like 4 of our rats, and then the resulting rats would also rise as Shamblers to come back and attack us again. This caused dozens of traitor rats to attack us at the same time. It got so bad to eventually to where we start having to ferry the dead bodies inside so they would stop resurrecting. Though eventually we managed to make it through, and we were awarded with the next tier of the Void Monolith. Oh, when Kodo and Kim started dating, I guess he's into muscle dom women, this kid tried to join us. I told him he's not a rat, so fuck off. He tried to kill us, so I organ murdered him.
Heart, lungs, liver, nerves. Heart, lungs, liver, nerves. Heart, lungs.
Though apparently he was just a kid, so I felt I kinda had to make things right. So I made sure nothing got wasted and had Xbox eat him.
Xbox!
Kim got pregnant surprisingly quickly, some toxlobes spawned into my environment, meaning my plan was actually working. I decided on my first 3 mechs being a lifter, an agrahand, and a Roomba. Also, I didn't want to pollute the environment too much, so for now I just stored the toxic waste with our food. Soon an opportunity to get more recruits arrived, for both another rat lord and a rat ogre showed up. We gently beat them up and began the recruiting process. Unfortunately, we didn't make it out unscathed, though. One of them managed to sneak under our radar and set the freezer on fire, burning all of our food supply, all of our rat meat, and all of our ambrosia to the ground. We couldn't even save anything either, as it was so hot people got hurt just for entering the room. Also, Kemp dumped Kodo even though she's pregnant with his child.
I'm pregnant.
The rebuilding process was slow, agonizing, and filled with food poisoning. The toxic waste burned in the fire, so we had to pump the whole fridge, but the Agraham was helping us farm now, so all would be well. Kim committed childbirth, I corrected the baby Ratlower's genetic errors, and the mechanoids decided they wanted to be attention whores. At the same time, Maynard joined us, we attacked the mechs with a whole pack of rats, and them combined with Xbox tanking, we didn't even break a sweat destroying the mech cluster. And right after, more Deli Ham decided to attack, but they didn't stand a chance against our increasingly powerful weapons I bought with organs.
It has no bones, fat, or connective tissue. It is an amalgamation of the meat of several pigs, emulsified, liquefied, strained, and ultimately inexorably joined in an unholy meat obelisk.
Most of our rats died during these attacks, but this was a common occurrence at that point. Linda joined us and shortly after finished building yet another tox generator. We were back to eating our own kind, and I was also informed by a piece of meat on the floor that there was an imposter among us.
Among us!
We got to work on a geothermal generator for a more sustainable source of power, decided now was a good time to piss off the void again. It gave me fucking Shamblers, so I made the executive decision to just stay inside and let them rot, and then the imposter revealed themselves as a giant metal kidney stone lodged inside Maynard. We quickly kicked it until it stopped moving and tied it up for study. We started constructing an actual containment room so the metal core couldn't escape, and we managed to weight all the Shamblers to death. And without even a second to catch our breath, some cultists came to yell loudly at the void so that they could kidnap one of our top kidnappers. Vlad cucked Kodo by proposing to Kemp, and for once a slave trader was selling someone with the right genes. I purchased Thomas immediately and walked Xbox over to the ritual, where he lured a bunch of Shamblers to start eating the cultists. I managed to gun down and kill the rest of them rather easily after that, but not before they managed to burn down all my generators because of fucking course they did. Thomas tried to break out even though we are literally freeing him from slavery. I purchased a sniper with organ money, and more Shamblers because Randy hates me. My crops developed herpes, we started feeding a tree dead bodies, another pointless raid. I built a fancy door for the SCPs. We started making plate armor out of void meat, and I also took those toxic waste packs and began intentionally polluting corners of the map. And things were overall looking well again, up until some tox folk potted into my fungus gardens to burn them down, only to immediately screw themselves over when they succumbed to the extreme heat.
Yo, what's up? This is Kyler. Let's break this gay-ass photo lab.
Don't worry, they still did plenty of damage. Another small Deli Ham attack, we organ murdered more people, and some vampires wanted to have a meeting at my base. I figured it was fine since they weren't Empire, and decided to turn Maynard into a Sanguiphage, as long as she still looked like a rat afterwards, and fortunately she did. If anything, this actually helped her tame more rats quickly. Some very friendly insects showed up to eat my trash. I got a mysterious cargo quest that I accepted because I thought it would give me an anomaly I hadn't discovered yet. It did, and oh my god, it gave me a Revenant. In all honesty, I should have destroyed this thing the second I had the chance, but I also needed to study it once. Surely I want to break out that fast. Maynard got her vampiric ovaries kicked by a Sigma bug, but she's a vampire, so she kinda just heals on her own. Xbox ate some Deli Ham. Rattler was now old enough to participate in genocide, and some vampires attacked, but they were dumb enough to land right in the middle of my base, so we wiped them easily. I didn't really want a second Sanguiphage though, mainly because this is about rats, not vampires, so I just put the other vampire in the fridge and forgot about him. Oh, and the Revenant escaped because of course he did, and immediately turned Rattler into a vegetable. How Revenants work is they attack the colony by hypnotizing a single person, rendering them catatonic. They then leave and hide somewhere invisible on the map, and do the same thing a few days later until you find and kill them. As for finding them, you can either wait until you have enough meat scraps they leave behind, and are able to detect them by just walking near them, or you can make EMP grenades and throwing them where you think they might be hiding. Fortunately, I thought ahead and we had some EMP grenades made, and began the hunt. They also have an obnoxious amount of health too, so when we finally did kill it, I made sure to crush the spine so I didn't see him again. I got a shard from the Revenant's spinal fluid, we unlocked the next tier of Monolith, meaning we only had one more tier to go, and the ground began to rumble, signaling only one thing, that we had to fight more Deli Ham.
God had no hand in the creation of this abhorrence. The fact that this ham monolith exists proves that God is either impotent to alter his universe or ignorant to the horrors taking place in his kingdom.
I captured as much of the ham as I could so I could pump them for more bioferrate, and this chunk of metal masquerading as a person tried to get into our colony. Yeah, I didn't get very far. We did take his laser rifle, though. Randy decided he wanted to be a douchebag and give me more Shamblers, and then wanted to double down and give me a generous mech raid, too. Fortunately, we still had half a dozen rat buddies to throw out an M-body block for us. Oh, and Maynard got with Coda, and now she's pregnant. The Deli Ham hole was getting more confident with its attacks. There was this blood rain that makes everyone angry, so we just stayed inside during it. It was really easy. Can't say the same for the raiders that attacked during it, though. Maynard's blood prisoner got sick from muscle parasites, but she's glorified farming equipment anyway, so I don't care. This sussy dragon kid asked to join us. I told him no because he's not a rat, and for once they took no for an answer. I decided Xbox deserved some upgrades for his hard work, and crafted up some barbs and plating before installing it for him, and I let him lead the charge into the Deli Ham's lair. The crew did a bit of fighting, but Ratlauer got injured and we were entering mental break territory, so I had everyone else leave, and had Xbox just go solo through the rest of the Deli Ham hive. With his upgrades, he was more than enough for several flesh beast combatants at once, and he regenerates his own wounds really fast. Plus, since Xbox doesn't care too much about the meat he consumes, he had plenty of tough spikes to eat, so hunger wasn't an issue. He continued killing and eating everything he could fit into his mouth, up until he found the boss of the Deli Ham. Being a wise combatant, Xbox called the rest of the crew down to unload lead into it, while he alone tanked it, and soon enough the Deli Ham faction leader was now being digested by Xbox.
Xbox.
After they left, the hole filled itself, Kodo married his vampire wife Maynard, I got tired of waiting for the reason why I was polluting the land, and then all of a sudden, through no activity of my own, a bunch of waste rats had spawned, but we had no time to enjoy them as the Deli Ham attempted one final attack against us. Basically, it makes the same cotton candy walls as it had in the caves, except this one grows them indefinitely while also making these turrets on them that lob acid at you. The only way to kill it is to kill all three of its bulbs so they don't spawn at the same time. Getting to the first one was easy, so we kinda just took 5 and went back to the base while we waited for the rest of them to grow. Though it wasn't really well defended, so I just ended up sending Xbox over to kick the second and third ones to death himself. We did have to have someone come over and analyze each of the chromosome samples afterwards, but all in all, we were able to finish off the last of the Deli Ham attacks rather well.
This prism of pork is more than deli meat. It is a physical declaration of mankind's contempt for the natural order. It is hubris manifest. We also have a lower sodium variety if you would prefer that.
We kidnapped the Fleshmass Nucleus because it would produce infinite meat for Xbox and for training the rats, but speaking of Xbox, I missed some Deli Ham stragglers and they ended up ganging up on him and killing him. However, Xbox wasn't just a ghoul. Xbox was a friend. So we stored him in the freezer while we prepared a concoction to resurrect him we already had it researched, and soon enough, Xbox was back and ready to kill more people. Also, in the time of us waiting for him to come back, we tamed 4 race rats and got to training them, and there was a boom rat attack, and that went about the way you think it would. And with the Deli Ham faction now out of the picture for good, we started provoking the Void again. Almost immediately, a smaller Void obelisk appeared and ended up producing a direct clone of Vad, who was under our control. I had no idea what to think of this guy, so I did the mature thing and just put him in the fridge and forgot about him. And we got to breaking the obelisk. It responded by creating some less friendly clones of everyone. I killed them all because we don't negotiate with terrorists, and in all honesty, it wasn't even close. They got torn to pieces by my ever-growing horde of rats. Oh, and Xbox ate Kodo's clone.
I'm sorry. Am I bothering you?
I made a Militor kind of just because. An entire horde of sight stealers showed up and mobbed Xbox to death. After we killed them, we resurrected him again because this is just another Tuesday for him at this point. We provoked the Void again, and this time it was a clone dead body of Clover. I immediately did the sensible thing and had Xbox eat it, only to find out it just regenerates itself. At this point, containment breaches were hopeless because they were instantly drowned in rats. Another obelisk landed nearby, and somehow one of my rats died from a drug overdose. Vampire Maynard also gave birth fine, and since it had rat ears and a tail, I didn't need to abuse its genetic code. The corpse started trying to gaslight Clover. Our rat militia was now heavily incorporated with waste rats. 3 people had malicious kidney stones, and then Clover's corpse decided it was enough playing hard to get and began a death charge towards her, claiming that she will stop at nothing. Therefore, I had the brilliant idea to put Clover in the refrigerator. The corpse couldn't break in, so we beat the corpse to death while it tried to break into the wig fridge.
The refrigerator! Get out of the refrigerator!
A fox killed one of our rats, so Xbox dealt with him, and there was another metal kidney stone hiding between Maynard's cheeks, but when we were dealing with him, Ratlauer ran past him and he got one shot, killing him instantly, so... Rip Ratlauer. We had a funeral for him though, even though we're rats. I set up another geothermal, more Shamblers, fuck you Randy, and before I knew it, it was time for another invoke. Before the next anomaly, or maybe this was the anomaly, a man asked to join our colony again, but this time he was a rat lord, so we immediately let him in. He kinda sucked at everything except social and animals though. And then the cube landed, and oh my god, this single cube was such a magnificent concentration of pure evil. The profound, abhorrent, and disgusting abilities of this single small inanimate object were by far the most catastrophic so far, but it didn't appear as such at first. It started with just Thomas playing around with it and receiving a mood buff. We also learned fabrication and a horde of Twitter using gazelles attacked the colony, but they weren't really notable. The cube is far more important. Kim then gave birth, some raiders attacked, but I was now getting comfortable with just drowning anybody who opposed me in a literal pool of rats. And then the first of the cube statues happened. Thomas stopped whatever he was doing and built an entire sculpture for the cube. It even raises beauty by a very small amount, but Thomas was already on his third sculpture, and I've already researched the cube at least 6 times by now, and I got nothing. I had no idea how many times this would take, but I was starting to get worried because it wasn't just Thomas anymore. Vampire Maynard was next to fall to the cube's seduction. Yefim decided to leave. 2 Sight Stealer swarm attacks because they're tired of being enslaved or something. My kill feed was starting to look nauseating, and Clover and Kodo were the next victims of the cube. A distraction from the madness of the cube was a mechanoid raid. We blew up the large turret instantly, then hid behind the rocks and ambushed each of the other mechs more easily without the aid of their turrets. I guess you could say we played some rat with them. The cube doesn't sound so bad on paper, but the fact that people were starting to get addictions to it and not being able to go a day without playing with it or building a sculpture, and worst of all, I've had Vlad research it well over 20 times now, and we still had nothing. We were at the point to where there were only 3 adults who weren't enthralled by the cube, so I made the executive decision to just try and speed through the remaining void creatures, so I could try and end the monolith before the cube ends me. And just my luck, it was going to be pure darkness next, and I had to prepare with lamps and campfires. When the wind started to slow, I had to make sure the fire was hot. Anyways, how the darkness anomaly works is it covers the entire map in an indefinite darkness, and anything caught inside the dark will suffer attacks ranging from moderate to severe as long as they are still inside them.
As long as these candles are lit, the spirits can't harm you.
Also, periodically, these Noctils will emerge from the darkness and attack rush your colony in packs every few days. Fortunately, Noctils are not particularly strong at all, and we can continue using the rat communism strategy on them. We didn't have enough room or lamps to cover the whole base though, so we ended up suffering some lacerations, but we overall made the base safe. I considered going out and breaking the Noctil nest since I did have flares built, but the darkness lifted a few days later anyway, so we kinda just took it as a win by default. We lost Sail to the cube, but to be honest, I don't even remember where I got her from. I think a raid. And now we had the option to start the final tuning of the monolith and finish this. However, we also had the perfect opportunity to prepare to make sure I am not inching barely along through the end of this monolith nightmare, kind of like I did for the darkness, so I got to work. Linda started by making some power conduits out of all of that scrap steel. Maynard continued training the waste rats that spread over the map. Linda got consumed entirely by the cube. Some raiders attacked, but waste rats with terminal cancer inflicting bites put a quick stop to them. And Vlad finally managed to figure out the cube, and we immediately made preparations to destroy it. The cube makes enthralled people go berserk when it's destroyed, so we took everyone enthralled into a room, disarmed them, and had them contain themselves by knocking each other out. It was a real I use the stones to destroy the stones type situation. Next, some bears attacked, but not even they were a match for getting drowned in a horde of cancer-inducing rats. We used some of that steel to construct some batteries that would help fuel our turrets and be good for the finale of this challenge. You see, I had Vlad put a large amount of his time into learning the basics of gunsmithing, and soon we had learned how to make gun turrets. And Thomas had been progressively filling our stockpile with components too. Maynard got pregnant again. And soon we had galvanized square steel turrets, not only in our base, but in many key areas around the map as well. And at this point, there was no further preparations I could make. Well, no further preparation that I was willing to make, and thus began the awakening of the end. Almost immediately, I moved all of my colonists to the safety hole I set up in the center of the map, conveniently with absolutely nothing inside. And we started mag dumping the metal horrors that came with the obelisk in front of us. We were completely safe to be near them as we had an entire horde of rats body blocking for us. We don't really need them to do any damage, as pretty much the whole crew had automatic weapons. Vlad activated it as soon as he could, and a creature I had never seen before emerged on the playing field. We unloaded our guns into it, and Vlad activated the second void structure as soon as the first. Not realizing that there were 3 other structures after this, I tactically retreated my forces back to base in order to heal our wounds. Creatures were trying to get in and had broken some of our turrets. Fortunately, the turrets also double as landmines and explode when they die. I sent the colonists back to get some of the down people, but with already 250 rat deaths, it became clear that I was not going to get everyone out of this alive. Maynard used her girl boss powers to save her daughter, Xbox did a good job at holding the line, and somehow over the course of only one in-game day, we went from over 400 rats to fucking 4.
Well, nothing's gonna stop my army of rats. Yeah!
I blame the metal horrors. Anyway, things were falling apart at the base too, so I had Remy get the other Vlad out of the refrigerator, because at this point I just needed more bodies to throw at the void. Mainly because I wasn't willing to admit defeat again, and plus Sale had died mere moments before I could get to her.
You gotta be quicker than that.
The doors were clogged open due to all the dead bodies, but Xbox heroically ate all the corpses in the way, allowing them to close. And the void started playing hardball with another darkness event. Our entire hospital was looking like a slumber party. I killed all the captive anomalies except the Deli Ham ball, and Vlad researched gas operation because we had lost several of our guns in the combat and I didn't want to build lamps all the way to them. In hindsight, I probably should have just used disruptor flares, but what's done is done. Ironically, lamps are what I used in order to make my way to some galvanized square steel so I could make the LMGs I was looking at. And after several brutal hours of crafting, a CIA-level body recovery operation so people would stop being sad, running out of food because there's no sunlight, giving a child a gun that probably weighs more than them, wasting flares to heist their own mushrooms out of hydroponics, and crafting dead life packs because zombie rats are better than no rats at all, I decided we were ready to finish this. Using flares to hop through the darkness, the third structure was easy as we had killed its metal horror guards in our own base defense. I used the dead life dust to spawn a rat skeleton army to block for us, and oh my god, giving everyone LMGs was such a good idea. Who would have guessed that having a ridiculously high fire rate would be good for slow-moving strong targets? I received confirmation that a Shambler had killed the last waste rat on the map, we took our vengeance upon it, and we activated the second structure and threw down some more dead life dust, then made our way to the last one, LMGs tore this metal horror to pieces, and we activated the last structure while Devourers ate our entire freezer. Maynard decided to take a nap for the last part of this. She's a vampire, she'll be fine. We made our way to the monolith where this all began, and it responded by sending Noctols, Sightstealers, and other monsters from our adventures in Anomaly at us all at once. And I'm not going to lie, they were kind of a pushover at this point. Even without Maynard, our LMGs at medium range are very powerful. And even more so, we dead life dusted the corpse pile in front of us. At that point, nothing could stop us. The monolith activated. I had Kodo enter it because Vlad was having a moment, even though he did 90% of the research work. He chose to embrace the void because he thought it was made out of warpstone, and the rats had successfully defeated the creatures of the void. But that was how their story ended. The rats had successfully defeated the void and went on to repair their homes. They had to start again from the bottom because every rat on the map was violently murdered, but this victory was theirs, and once they rebuilt, they could use their new technology to set their sights on the Empire. However, we weren't exactly sure what to do with Kodo. He had witnessed eternity and the void stared back at him, meaning he was one of them now. So he could only do the humane thing and have Xbox eat him, and as Xbox always says, no survivors, no witnesses, and no remains. Well, he doesn't say all that, all he says is one word. Xbox. But thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a comment down below to tell me what you think, and if you want to see more Rimworld content or what other content you would like to see from me. And if you haven't already yet, please consider subscribing as we are almost to 100,000 subscribers, and I'd really like to hit it this year. With that being said, thank you all again, and I will see you all next time.